Welcome to Real Talk with Garrett and Laura. Today we are going to talk about home inspections.
We're going to talk about how to find a good home inspector, what to look for on an inspection and a sewer scope, and then how to negotiate for the repairs.
Awesome. And again, if there are any topics that you want us to cover, please let us know. We need ideas.
We need help for next week.
Okay, here we go. So of course, every buyer has the right to pick their own inspector. It's completely up to them. But honestly, I recommend taking the advice of your agent. They probably have some inspectors in their phone, and they likely saved them because those inspectors were outstanding.
Yeah, and I'll always tell people, do you want someone that's very strict on all their inspections, loosey-goosey, or somewhere kind of in the middle?
Yeah, and I always personally go for like the more picky plus inspectors, but that's just how I am, and I know some people are less anxious than I am and maybe want a more low-key inspection. So,
and the bottom line is you really want a home inspector that's going to be able to tell you that they'd be willing to walk away from the house. And my home inspector for the place that I ended up buying in South Seattle is a 1903 house, and the foundation had been reinforced but still was a little wonky. And he was telling me I should walk away. Maybe I should have listened to his advice because I had to put a bunch of cash in from the beginning. But you do want a home inspector that says, hey, now would be the time to walk away from this deal.
So as long as you have somebody that's not afraid to tell you what they really think about a piece of property, then you're in good shape. And the three things, the list can get long because they're nitpicky on everything. And the four things I tell people to really worry about are like the big headache items and the big money items. So that's like roof, crawl space, foundation, and sewer line. Because to me, those are especially important because they can really add to the cash you need. And it just helps to know that those are the big things to focus on, because when you are with your inspector, the list does get really long.
Mm-hmm. And it's the inspector's job to point out everything that's wrong with the house, so it can seem overwhelming. But if you are just doing what you talked about of roof, crawl space, foundation, and sewer line, those are going to be the big ticket items that are going to be most important. So I always tell people to focus on that. And that's what our recommendation would be is don't get caught up in every single little thing that they point out, but really focus on the big stuff, because a home inspector is going to point out peeling paint or a handrail that's not up to code or gaps in a deck that then isn't up to code nowadays. But those can all be overwhelming. We just want you to think of the big things, not the little ones.
Yeah. And maybe the roof is in tough shape, and that's fine. So we're telling you to focus on those things, but yes, maybe the roof is in tough shape. It doesn't mean you need to back out of the deal. It just means that you need to know in advance that you might be spending $30,000 on a roof in a few years. So it's not as much that, it means you shouldn't get the house if one of those big ticket items is one of those main items is a problem. We just think that you need to know in advance that that something is a big financial commitment, because when you're committing to a house, nothing like that should ever be a surprise.
And our representation of you and doing the inspection sewer scope is to avoid any big financial issues that you'd come across, because the seller may not know of any root intrusion in their sewer line or a cracked sewer line because the water flush is just fine, or they don't know about something wrong on the roof because it's out of sight, out of mind. So it's our job to kind of bring that to the table and to show the seller, here's what the third party said. It's not coming from us trying to negotiate. This is what any other buyer would ask for in the same case too. Our job is to help you avoid any big financial surprises that could come up. The seller may have no idea about root intrusion in their sewer line because water flush is just fine, or anything wrong with the roof because it's out of sight, out of mind to them. But these are all things that can be fixed, and you deserve to know that they need fixing. So for negotiating for the inspection findings, Laura, what's the best way that you want to get across to the seller what needs to be done without them rejecting our counteroffer?
Yeah, so when we get our inspection report back, usually the inspector highlights the main items that should be fixed. So you want to ask for those main items that are material to the house, whether it's code or function or something like that. What you want to avoid is requesting repairs to cosmetic issues, or not even repairs, requesting changes to cosmetic issues, because chances are you might just insult the taste of the seller. And if you add things like that to your requests, then you're more likely to have them say no to the things that are material to the function of the house, because now they're upset with your request.
And we don't want something like switching out a bathroom fixture or knobs to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because they could see a list of 4 or 5 things and get offended by the one thing that is their taste. So we want to use these reports as the third party that says, this is what the inspector or the sewer scope person was asking for or said needs to be done. It's not just what we want to be done. And also too, that any other buyer down the road is going to be asking for these, because when we're in the home inspection time, the loan's already in process, we're getting closer to closing, and we want to paint the picture as it's not us, this is what the professional is saying that needs to be done.
Yeah. And sometimes we're doing them a favor. Sometimes we're telling them they need a carbon monoxide detector and their house wouldn't appraise without it. So, it's just good to make sure you're framing it as this is what anyone would need.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we have for this week. Thanks so much, you guys, for tuning in.
And send us topics, ideas, questions that you have. We'd love to hear it.
Yep. Thanks.